Welcome to the Private School Leader Podcast, where private school leaders learn how to thrive and not just survive as they serve and lead their schools. I strongly believe that it is possible to have a long and happy and fulfilling career as a private school leader. And my passion is to help you figure out exactly how to do just that right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And I'm your host, Mark Minkus. So I'm going to start today's episode by telling you 4 things and then asking you what these 4 things have in common. So the 4 things are, number 1, a meatloaf recipe. Next is the 2nd grade math curriculum. And then third is the NFL rulebook. And then finally, a grading rubric. So again, let me ask you those 4 things, and you're trying to figure out what do these 4 things have in common. A meatloaf recipe, the 2nd grade math curriculum, the NFL rulebook, and a grading rubric. Okay, well, these are all examples of frameworks. And frameworks give us structure in our lives, but they also give a little room for interpretation. So you have the meatloaf recipe, but you don't have to stick to it exactly. The 2nd grade math teacher can do some different things with that curriculum, and certainly if you have an NFL team that you root for, you know that the officials on the field, sometimes things are open to interpretation. But we deal with and use frameworks every day as private school leaders, and a couple more examples would be the student handbook and the bell schedule. You know, these frameworks help us to kind of find our way through the chaos, but we also have the ability to adjust and be agile with these frameworks. Okay, so why are we talking about frameworks today? Well, because on today's episode of the Private School Leader Podcast, I'm going to give you one framework that will make you a more effective and happier leader. So I know that's a big claim, but stick around, and I promise I'm going to give you this framework, and I think it will make a big difference as you lead your school. And so one of the things that we're talking about on today's episode is how to be a more effective leader. And I want to help you with that. I've created a free resource, and this is called the 6 Things That Every Private School Teacher Wants from Their Leader. And this guide is a 6-page PDF that I think can be a real game changer for you. And I guarantee you that if you do these 6 things, the teachers at your school will be happy to follow you. So you can grab your free guide by going to theprivateschoolleader.com/guide. And that's the 6 things that every private school teacher wants from their leader at theprivateschoolleader.com/guide, and definitely will make you a more effective leader. And then I just wanted to say, I know how busy you are, and I know that you want to have meaningful experiences for your teachers at your fall PD day. And during my career, it seemed like that first fall PD day really snuck up on me. And also in our schools, I think it's really difficult to find meaningful PD that applies to all the teachers in the same room from preschool all the way up to 12th grade. Well, I recently had there was a teacher in North Carolina whose school used Parent Academy plug-and-play PDs for their fall PD. And here's what she said, quote, "I never thought a PD could be relevant to all 3 divisions in our school. We all have the same issues with parents, whether we teach the 3-year-old or the 12th grader. Private schools are different," end quote. So I know that you want to have meaningful PD. I know you're really, really busy and trying to find time. And I know that you're trying to find something that can be useful to the teachers in all of the grade levels. So I've got you covered. Parent Academy has 2 plug-and-play PDs. They're 45-minute webinars. They have a printable workbook with guided notes and discussion questions for your teachers. And there's still time to make Parent Academy part of your fall teacher PD day. And so go to theprivateschoolleader.com/Parent Academy to check that out. Again, theprivateschoolleader.com/Parent Academy. So we're talking about frameworks today. And I'm going to give you a framework, and it's going to sound a little weird. And it's a metaphor, but I really think that it will be intuitive to you, and I think it can be a real game changer for you. And so this is called the hot air balloon framework. And I want to share this with you because I think it's simple, I think it's visual. I think you once you put yourself inside this framework, you won't be able to unsee it. And I just want to keep it really simple. So the hot air balloon framework basically boils down to the fact that there are two different kinds of hot air balloon rides. And you, as you lead your school, are doing one of these hot air balloon rides. The first one is the Chase Van hot air balloon ride. And then the second is the State Fair hot air balloon ride. So stay with me. I'm going to explain both what I mean, the Chase Van hot air balloon ride, the State Fair hot air balloon ride. You will quickly be able to tell which ride you're on, and then I'll give you the framework, which will, as I said at the top of the episode, which will help you to be a more effective and happier leader. So let's start with the Chase Van hot air balloon ride. So I want you to picture this. You're in a hot air balloon. It's early in the morning. This balloon takes off at sunrise. There's nothing keeping it attached to the ground. They let those tethers go, and you are kind of completely at the mercy of the wind. Now, you know that the heat that the pilot can control will make the balloon go up or perhaps go down a little bit and catch certain wind currents, but when they take off on a Chase Van hot air balloon ride, they don't know where they're going to land, and that's where the Chase Van comes in. You float for 3 hours, let's say, and I want you to picture you're drifting over farmland and beautiful trees, maybe a river, maybe a highway, and you really don't have any idea where you're going to land, but eventually 3 hours later, you do touch down in some random field somewhere. And then about a half an hour later, this Chase Van shows up, and you get in the van, and it drives you back to your car. And so this is a Chase Van hot air balloon ride. And so the private school leader who is taking this kind of ride is controlled by the urgency of the day. So you don't have control over kind of the direction of your day. You're jumping in and out of your email inbox all day long. You're going from email to text to meeting to walking right past the bathroom, even though you have to go. This Chase Van ride private school leader is reacting instead of pausing and responding. But unfortunately, this kind of leader is also burning out, possibly losing direction, possibly doesn't have very good boundaries in their life, and you're just kind of going where the day takes you. And some of you that are listening to this are kind of nodding your head right now and saying, yeah, that feels right. That feels like me. And that's just how you do it. Run it back day after day after day. And of course, in this analogy, the wind is the chaos of your school day. Some days it's much windier than others, and you're not really sure where you're going to land at the end of the day. And so that is the Chase Van hot air balloon ride. But there's a better option that I want to try to persuade you to consider, and then I'll help you with a couple of strategies to actually be able to do this. So instead of the Chase Van hot air balloon ride, I want you to consider the State Fair hot air balloon ride. The State Fair hot air balloon ride. So you go to a state fair, and there's this hot air balloon, and you get in it, and it has 4 giant ropes that are tied to probably a vehicle or maybe even a building, something very, very heavy and unmovable. The ropes are gigantic and strong. And you get into this basket of the hot air balloon at the state fair, and it goes straight up about 100 feet. And you get a really cool view of the fairgrounds. you take some pictures, you take a selfie, and then you come back down. But here's the key, and here's the big difference between these two kinds of hot air balloon rides, and that is that this hot air balloon, even if it's a windy day, it's not going anywhere because it's tethered to the ground by these 4 giant ropes. And these 4 giant ropes are going to keep that balloon where it belongs. You're not going to drift off and land somewhere 3 hours later, because no matter how windy it gets, no matter how loud and crazy and chaotic the state fairgrounds become, you're anchored to the ground. You're safe. You're in control of the going up and the coming down. And as a private school leader, this is where I want you to be. I want you to have a little bit more control. And you're like, yeah, right. Yeah, control. I don't even know what that is. Okay, here's the key in this framework. The key are the 4 tethers that keep you grounded. And so, like I said, these 4 tethers, they'd better be strong. They better be attached to something. They better be able to withstand the wind. And, you know, in this metaphor, you know your school's a very windy place. It's not a matter of whether it's windy. It's a matter of how windy it is and how much this balloon is going to get blown all over the place. You as a private school leader, how are you going to get pulled? How much are you going to get pulled in every direction on this particular day? And so if these 4 tethers have to be something very, very strong in your life, I want to tell you what I think these 4 tethers need to be in your life in order for you as a private school leader to be able to have the framework of the state fair hot air balloon ride every day at school. So they have to be strong. They have to be that thick rope. They have to be attached to something that's not going to move. So I'm going to give you the 4 things. I think that the 4 tethers are, number 1, self-care. Number 2, your family. Number 3 is faith or religion or spirituality. And then number 4 is your compelling why. And I want you to stick with me here because I really strongly believe that this can change your life at school and it can change your life at home if you start thinking about prioritizing these 4 things so that you can stay tethered during your day, and for that matter, outside of school as well. So tether number 1 is self-care. So why do we want to prioritize self-care? Well, I saw this quote, and it says, if you're not okay, your school won't be okay. If you're not okay, your school won't be okay. I think that's pretty true. But I have to give a disclaimer about self-care. I was not taking care of myself for the first 19 years of my 33-year career as a private school leader. And I'll be honest, I feel a little bit like a hypocrite, and I don't like hypocrites. I feel a little like a hypocrite talking about self-care when for the first 19 years I did not take care of myself. But then circumstances led to me going to the doctor and, having the doctor tell me that I was obese and that I had a fatty liver and that I was at risk for adult onset diabetes, and reminding me that I had 3 daughters, and if they were blessed enough to get married, didn't I want to be there to walk them down the aisle? And that was the thing that changed everything for me. And then I got much more healthy and I prioritized my self-care. But I just feel like I need to give that disclaimer that for the first 19 years I didn't do it, and also give you permission to not feel shame or to blame yourself or have guilt if you haven't been prioritizing self-care. I get it. But I want you to imagine one of these ropes that's keeping you tethered to the ground, that's attached to something strong and heavy and immovable, is your self-care. And what does that look like? Okay, well, getting enough sleep and moving your body, eating some protein during the day. You know, I used to wear it as a badge of honor. It would be like 3:30 p.m. and I would be warming up my microwavable Weight Watchers lunch or something, and someone would say, "Oh man, you're just eating lunch now?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, you know, busy, busy, busy." And I would wear it like a badge of honor that I didn't have time to eat lunch. And that was stupid. So another part of self-care is knowing when to say no. Taking mental health seriously. I didn't take my mental health seriously until I kind of had to. Setting actual boundaries. I did an episode a few weeks ago, and the question was, are your boundaries written in pencil or written in Sharpie? And so, you know, each one of these could be an episode about self-care. That's not what this is about. Today's episode is about getting you to see that if you want to have that state fair hot air balloon ride during the day for you as a private school leader and be tethered to the ground and not blown all over the place during the day and have no idea where you're going to land at the end of the day, you have to be attached to something. And one of those things has to be some sort of self-care that exists every day in your life. Okay, one last thing on self-care. I'm going to link in the show notes episode 71, and it's titled, "Do You Treat Your Self-Care Like Tylenol or a One-A-Day Vitamin?" Obviously, the premise of that episode is that sometimes we treat our self-care like when we have a headache every once in a while, we reach for the Tylenol, but then we ignore that Tylenol bottle until we need it. And that, you know, our self-care is like, oh no, you know, things are bad, and then we get serious about self-care. And I try to persuade you in episode 71 that, you know, our self-care needs to be more consistent, like a one-a-day vitamin. So I know that I said that this could be a whole episode about, you know, how to improve your self-care. If that's something that really speaks to you and you want to try, and it's time in your life to try to be more intentional about prioritizing your self-care, this strong rope that's going to keep your hot air balloon tethered, then episode 71 is linked for you in the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 157. All right, we're on to tether number 2. Big rope number 2 that's keeping you attached to the ground is family. And I would say that the biggest regret in my career is that I prioritized my job as a private school leader over my family for a pretty big stretch of my career. And I've told you before that there were 2 different times when my wife said to me, "I feel like you're married to the school and not married to me." More than once, one of my daughters said, "Dad, when do we get to see you instead of the back of your laptop?" And they were both right. You know, is your family the thing that gets what's left of you after a 14-hour day? And I'm not saying that to make you feel guilty, because I've been there. I felt guilty. I just want to shine a light on this, that our family shouldn't be our partner, spouse, kids, loved ones, our parents, whoever you consider to be your inner circle, your family. They shouldn't get what's left. They're one of our anchors. They're one of our tethers. They're one of the things that keeps us attached to the ground and keeps us from flying all over the country. And I believe strongly, because this has happened to me, is that if we neglect our relationships, the cost is real. There's a cost at home, and there's a cost at school. And I just think that having strong relationships with your spouse and your kids, your partner, your family, your inner circle, your loved ones, maybe your best friend, your siblings that you don't spend enough time with, whatever the case might be, that this is not just a good idea, but it's probably, next to self-care, the most important thing. It might even be more important than your self-care. And yet, the two things I've talked about already, the two big ropes, self-care and family, are probably the things that are at the bottom of the list for most of us. They certainly were for me. And again, I'm not shining a light on this to try to make you feel bad. I'm shining a light on this so that we can take action and that we can see the importance of it, and we can see that without these tethers, maybe that's why you feel the way you feel at the end of a school day, is because the school day is happening to you and you're just landing wherever you land. I want you to be tethered. And so number 2 is family, that strong rope that keeps you attached to the ground during our state fair hot air balloon ride. And I'll give you an episode. Again, some of you are going to want to dig deeper on strategies, because not every one of you needs the same amount of work on the same rope. But if you want to try and prioritize the family a little more, episode 75 is called Stop Inviting Parents into Your Home After 7 p.m., and I'll link that in the show notes as well. All right, tether number 3 that's keeping us attached to the ground, firmly attached, is faith, religion, spirituality. And I listed all 3 because this one looks different for everyone that's listening. You know, faith in God, for some people, that means a relationship. For some people, that means more of religion and church attendance, or attendance at the synagogue. And it means more the tradition and the rituals of the religious experience. For some, it's not so much about God as it is about spirituality and about meditation and perhaps time in nature. But this tether, faith, religion, spirituality, whatever it looks like for you, I just really strongly believe that if you're not connected to something that's bigger than yourself, that we're gonna shrink. We're gonna get crushed under the weight of our leadership. And so for you, whether it's prayer or a church attendance, praise and worship music, reading the Bible, meditation, silently being in nature, whatever this tether looks like for you, I just think that a big part of this is that it's a reminder that you're not doing this alone. And so, like I said, this looks different for everyone, but I know that there's a lot of people that listen to the podcast that are people of faith, people who work at religious schools. There are certainly a lot of people who listen that, whether you're religious or whether you're a spiritual person, it doesn't matter how it looks. What matters is that I believe strongly that one of these big ropes that's keeping us attached to the ground is this aspect of faith or religion or spirituality, something bigger than ourselves that we believe in, that we can latch onto when it gets to be really, really windy. So tether number 3 is faith, religion, spirituality. And that brings us to our final tether. Tether number 4 is your compelling why. And I'm not talking about the resume answer or the interview question answer or even the activity. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in an activity at in-service days you did a little work on coming up with your compelling why, but just why do you do what you do? Why did you get into education in the first place? Was it to change lives, to make a difference, to give students the teacher that you never had, to build something that lasts, to pour into kids, to serve kids, to serve a community? You know, you've heard me tell my story. My compelling why is throwing starfish. You know, the starfish story, the little boy is on the beach and the old man's walking. He's getting closer to the little boy, and he sees the little boy's throwing something. He gets closer. He sees that the little boy is throwing starfish into the ocean. And the old man says, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, the tide is going out, the sun is coming up, and these starfish are going to die unless I throw them into the ocean." And the old man looks to the right and to the left and says to the little boy, "There's thousands of starfish for thousands of yards in every direction. How could you possibly make a difference?" And the little boy bends down and picks up a starfish and throws it into the ocean and looks at the old man and says, "I made a difference to that one." That is my compelling why. That is why I do the hard thing. That's why I got up every day for 33 years and went to work and went to school and did the hard thing. And for the last 9 years, at the top of my index card, my task list, I've written throwing starfish so that it reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing. I just think that our days are so chaotic with the tyranny of the urgent, people coming at us with emails with capital letters and exclamation points, and a teacher coming in hot that's upset about something that objectively is not worth getting upset over, a parent that goes from 0 to 1,000,000 in like a second and is outraged over something. We have to be connected to the compelling reason why we're doing what we're doing, and it has to be in plain sight. I teach that with the index card that you write down your must-do list, that at the top you write your compelling why. And like I said, I've been doing that for 9 years. If you don't write it on your list for the tasks you do for the day, maybe it's on a Post-it note that's stuck on your monitor. But if you want to do some work on your compelling why and figure it out so that you can write it down, then episode 1, all the way back to the first episode, 3 Ways to Thrive at One of the Most Difficult Jobs on Earth, one of the 3 things there is to throw some starfish, and I get into teaching you how to come up with your compelling why and have a link to a TED Talk by Simon Sinek. I know most of you probably know your compelling why, but if you don't, that's no big deal. But I'm just saying that I believe it's worthy of your attention so that it can be one of your big ropes to keep you tethered to the ground. So I want to ask you the big question. Which balloon ride are you taking? Which balloon are you in? Are you in the chase van balloon, just kind of drifting and not sure where you're going to land, and the windy day is the chaos of your school, and it's just the day is happening to you, and you hope you land in a field and not in some high power lines or on the middle of a highway? That's the chase van balloon ride. It's probably going to work out just fine, but you're not in control. Or are you in the state fair balloon where you've got 4 giant ropes, and you're going to go up with an intentional purpose to take some pictures, look at the view, and come back down. You're doing things on purpose, and you're tethered with 4 really strong ropes so that you don't drift away. And this isn't a one-time decision, it's a daily decision. Now, there are going to be days where even if you're crushing it as far as being in the state fair hot air balloon ride, there are going to be a couple days in a row where you're just, boom, you're in that chase van balloon. But you have to be kind to yourself and not attach shame, blame, judgment to how the last couple of days went, and then just get back to those 4 big tethers and get back in that state fair balloon ride. Today I gave you a framework, the hot air balloon framework. And the 2 kinds of hot air balloon rides, the chase van hot air balloon ride and the state fair hot air balloon ride. I don't want you to be in the chase van hot air balloon ride. I want you to be in that state fair hot air balloon ride, but you've got to have 4 big tethers that are going to keep you grounded. And in my opinion, number 1 is self-care, number 2 is family, number 3 is your faith or religion or spirituality, and number 4 is your compelling why. And if you can prioritize those things that are for sure, those things that are going to keep you grounded, those things that are solid, the ropes are strong, and they're attached to very, very heavy things so that that balloon can't drift away. Your call to action is to ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, what balloon am I in? Which balloon am I in? And then question number 2 is, which of those big ropes needs the most attention? And then give it some attention, give it some priority, and make it happen. Put it in your calendar. Be intentional about what am I going to do? And if you need some additional help, you don't even know where to start, then go to the show notes at theprivateschoolleader.com/episode 157 and listen to one of those episodes. It will help you to get started to prioritize those big ropes in your life. So, I want to remind you of 2 things real quick. I have a free resource for you that can help you be more effective as a leader. This resource is called The 6 Things That Every Private School Teacher Wants from Their Leader, and you can grab that at theprivateschoolleader.com/guide. And then a second reminder that there's still time to make Parent Academy part of your fall teacher PD day. And you can check out theprivateschoolleader.com/parent academy for how user-friendly, plug-and-play, easy I can help make that for you. And there's a bunch of testimonials there from teachers who've used the plug-and-play PDs and from administrators, school leaders who've used it as well. So check that out at theprivateschoolleader.com/parent academy. And as usual, I just want to ask a favor. If you would please share this podcast with another leader in your life and also a rising leader at your school. And I just want to say that I appreciate you so much. I value all of the hard work that you're doing for those lucky kids and those lucky teachers. And I just want to say thank you for taking some of your precious time to join me here today. And I'll see you next time right here on the Private School Leader Podcast. And until then, always remember to serve first, lead second, and make a difference.